You can now get 2 free audiobook downloads and a 30-day free trial at audible.bogosity.tv. Your choice from the world's largest selection of over 180,000 digital audiobooks and spoken word content for your iOS or Android device, Kindle, or MP3 player. Go to audible.bogosity.tv now. Welcome to the Bogosity podcast for the week of October 22nd, 2017. The podcast that knows what it's like to be the bad man. This is your host, Shane Killian, and returning this week after a long absence, he's back, he's bad, he's Lord T. Hawkeye. Welcome back, Tim Dyson.
Hello once again, boys and girls. Sorry to be away so long, but lots of business to take care of.
Yeah, what you been doing with yourself?
I'm trying to survive summer and working on my comic. Now that I've got the script ahead, that's all taken care of for now.
Let's disconsole the news of the bogus. So it does seem like we've been going after the left quite a bit lately since they seem bent on denying everybody's free speech online. It's worth being reminded that Republicans aren't any better, as a new poll from the Cato Institute found.
Finally.
We've talked about the millennials and the social justice warriors and Black Lives Matter people who shut down speeches and get people kicked off of Twitter or YouTube just because they don't like what they have to say. But many conservatives admit to favoring policies that would restrict the free speech of Muslims and people who disrespect the United States. Basically, this podcast will be gone.
Pretty much.
Many of them even want to restrict journalists, so much for freedom of the press as well.
Now, if they're talking in the case of journalists not being allowed to slander people, yes, I absolutely would be in favor of that, because that is what some of them are talking about.
Yeah, but 63% of them said that journalists are enemies of the American people.
Well, if you are actively trying to basically sound the dinner bell for Antifa, like some of them are, you could definitely make that argument. They have done that. They have basically actively given carte blanche to Antifa to go around and be violent. I mean, I'm sorry, that does kind of make you an enemy of society if you're doing that.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that in general, though. I mean, you're talking about going after all members of the press here. You know, there are probably cases, but still. 72% of Republicans would support a law banning flag burning and other forms of flag desecration. More than half would punish the desecrators by stripping them of their U.S. citizenship, which I suppose would be an interesting way to avoid the $2,350 expat tax. Around 70% did agree that, quote, people should be allowed to express unpopular opinions in public, even those that are deeply offensive to other people, compared to less than 50% of Democrats, but that didn't stop 36% of Republicans wanting to make it illegal to insult the police or the military.
Yeah, I can understand them being upset. It is understandable. The left has gone completely ridiculous about it. But don't respond by doing the same thing they do.
Right, respond with speech of your own.
And I'm glad this is being called out, because there's something I've been noticing that I've been finding a little troubling, is that in light of the left being completely ridiculous, we're seeing a lot of people on the other side basically coming in and using it as an opportunity, like even people who are genuinely racist or genuinely misogynist, basically saying their thing because they know they're always going to look favorable compared to how ridiculous the left is.
Well, and what does it mean if people call you a racist if they're calling everybody racists?
Yeah, that makes it even worse, because now the genuine racists are completely hidden away, because now when you call them out, everyone just rolls their eyes, says, oh, it's just left being hysterical again. Move on.
Yeah, they're hidden in plain sight. Half of Republicans actually say Americans have too much freedom to just do whatever they want. So much for them being aligned with libertarians.
Oh, no, they weren't.
No.
The only reason I don't consider the Republican the enemy right now is because they're at least willing to negotiate. The left has closed off that option, so if you close off negotiation, what else is there?
But that's kind of what we're talking about. You can't disrespect the United States. You can't, insult the military or whatever.
That's something people get, like, when people are getting angry about the virtue signalers at the NFL, I don't think many people are saying you can't do that. It's just don't do that and then act surprised when you don't get a nice reaction for it, because you basically just insulted all your fans and everything.
Well, I mean, the NFL has a perfect right to set up whatever rules they want, so if they want to police it, I'm fine with that. But, I mean, of course, the right is all going, we need to ban this. Everyone needs to be required to stand for, the Pledge of Allegiance and the National Anthem. And I'm sitting here wondering what a free society is doing with the Pledge of Allegiance and National Anthem to begin with.
Oh, yeah. But there's a YouTube channel I watched. They checked it out. The official NFL rulebook says you are required to stand at attention for the thing. It's written in the rulebook, so the players really don't have a leg to stand on here.
Well, the NFL can do that. Just leave the government out of it.
Oh, yeah, we don't need them. That's something the NFL needs to handle.
Now, according to this same survey, Democrats didn't fare much better. Half agree that, quote, government should prevent people from engaging in hate speech against certain groups in public, and 53% said that defending someone's right to say racist things is as bad as racism itself. I guess they've forgotten Neville and Beatrice Hall's words, I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it.
I could even be willing to compromise a little bit here to the left. If you're going to say that hate speech is bad and you shouldn't do it, then enforce it universally. Stop with this completely one-sided approach you take to it. If you say hate speech is universally bad, then you have to go after certain holy books who say kill people who aren't like us. Or you have to go after feminists who say kill all men. Stop being so blatantly one-eyed about it, because it just makes you look opportunistic.
But as we'll see a little later, that's pretty much what always happens. It's always one side using it against the other.
Which is one of the reasons why nobody should be allowed to, because people can't be trusted to be consistent about it.
Not only that, but 2/3 of Democrats said that offensive speech constitutes an act of violence.
That is completely unenforceable, because if you say, I'm offended by what you say, so you're affecting violence, couldn't I just hit you right back with, well, I'm offended by you accusing me of something so terrible. What are you going to do about it?
Well, I think it's one of those we want an excuse to punch a Nazi type of thing.
Yeah, good luck there. I've seen what your army consists of.
So freedom of speech is under attack from the left and from the right as well. Those of us who hold it dear have our work cut out for us.
What I'm hoping is that, considering the left has pretty much burned every bridge they can right now, and I can't see them lasting like this, if the Democrat Party were to completely just fall under, maybe that might set an example for others of what happens when you engage in this kind of behavior.
Maybe, we can hope. Say, if you're tired of the promos in this podcast, well, the patrons got it early and with no ads or promos. Just go to patreon.bogosity.tv and donate at any level. Do you have children or nieces or nephews? Are you homeschooling or just want to counter some of the socialist indoctrination most children get in school? If so, go to bogosity.tv/TuttleTwins and you'll be taken to a website where you can get some great books for elementary age children. The Tuttle Twins books are books about liberty and free market economics that include children's versions of Bastiat's The Law, Leonard Read's I, Pencil, and Hayek's The Road to Serfdom, as well as books about the Federal Reserve and how regulations protect business cronies. They'll learn about the harm caused by eminent domain, or regulations passed in the name of safety, and fundamental concepts of liberty. And as you can see from the sample pages on the website, they're all easy to read and nicely illustrated. They're just $9.99 a piece, or get a special discount as well as free bonuses when you purchase all 5. You can even buy in bulk to donate to schools and local libraries. So get the Tuttle Twins books at bogosity.tv/TuttleTwins. As bad as that last story was, so far it's at least just theoretical. It's not actually happening. Unlike in the UK, where over 3,300 people were arrested for making offensive comments online in the past year. And that's according to figures obtained by the Times under the Freedom of Information Act. 3,395 people across 29 different police forces were arrested last year for violations of Section 127 of the Communications Act of 2003, which actually makes it illegal to, quote, cause annoyance, inconvenience, or needless anxiety to another.
Completely open-ended. You putting this into law, people? You wouldn't sign a gym contract with that kind of open language in it.
Yeah, it's vague enough to apply to almost anything. Now, the true figure is likely a lot higher, as 13 police forces refused to comply with the request, and 2 others provided completely unusable data.
Oh, gee, go figure.
Now, around half of these were dropped before being prosecuted, but that still leaves over 1,600 people prosecuted just for saying things that hurt other people's fifis.
What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of?
Home Secretary Amber Rudd, who was last week's biggest Bogon emitter, has announced a special police hub to focus on online hate, so likely these numbers will increase quite a bit.
What? Have you caught all the rapists, all the thieves, all the murderers, all the assaulters? You caught all that stuff? No? Well, then quit wasting taxpayer money and get out and do the people who are actually doing damage. I'm sorry, but mean words should not take this much effort.
Now, as this Breitbart article points out, what you did, that they're being very selective about this. And I don't know how selective Breitbart is being about cherry-picking these examples. Maybe, you could find some examples going the other way as well. But you have, for example, Nadia Chan, a self-described Islamist who made a number of racist remarks on social media after she appeared on Channel 4. She said the Jews were parasites and white people were swine and pasty, bland bitches who have no culture, no rich history. You ain't shit. Your ancestors were cave people. Is there anyone whose ancestors weren't cave people? She also openly endorsed terror attacks, yet the Metropolitan Police have so far refused to bring any charges against her, even after receiving thousands of complaints.
Cowards.
And another example is a transgender model who's also mixed race, Monroe Bergdorf, who said, quote, "The white race is the most violent and oppressive force of nature on Earth," in a BBC broadcast. So far, no official action has been taken.
I love that. Oh, the white people are so terrible. Oh, let's go live in the white countries.
Yeah, like there's never been any violence anywhere else on the planet.
Yeah, I would just love to see these people go move to some of these other countries that are just rife with violence and then say, oh, maybe it's not so bad after all.
Why don't you go to Rwanda, where whether or not you live or die is determined on the width of your nose? Or somewhere like that.
God, these people are such pampered princes and princesses thinking they've got it tough because they have no real world experience. And apparently they've got nobody in their life who loves them enough to tell them, no, that's wrong, you're an idiot.
Now, my opinion is they shouldn't take any action against them, not even for endorsing terror attacks unless the endorsement poses an imminent threat of violence. But it's the fact that they are arresting and even prosecuting so many others, at least apply it consistently.
It's what I've always said. Believe what you want, but be consistent about it. So either everyone gets to nail anyone who offends them, or nobody gets to nail anyone who offends them. Nothing in between.
And think of how unworkable it would be for everyone, because, like you said earlier, oh, you said something offensive, that offends me. Oh, yeah, well, you just offended me, and then they nail each other, and that...
Well, that's exactly why they won't do that.
Yeah, but, I mean, the only consistent way that's actually going to work in the real world is to just let everyone say what they want.
Here's something, up here in Canada, when they're talking about putting in laws like this all over the board, there was somebody who had a recording of a, what do you call a religious leader in Islam?
Imam?
An imam, saying in no uncertain terms to kill Jews. Like, this was not the slightest bit gray. He was caught on tape saying this. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. The guy was never touched.
But I mean, the fact is, it's just once you allow government to go down that road, it's going to be used against the people that those in power oppose.
And here's the thing to think about in the future. I know you people aren't very good at thinking in the long term, but just try and bear with me. Let's say you kept doing this. So what's going to happen is the most whiny, easily offended, and violent people are going to thrive, and everyone else is going to be driven away or arrested. How long do you think you can maintain control of a population like that?
But it's also the fact that it's not the opinions of the people in power who need to be expressed. They're going to be able to express them. You need freedom of speech because people are wanting to say something that some people find offensive. If it's not going to stick in someone's craw, it doesn't need to be defended.
They completely don't get that. That's way beyond them. Freedom of speech is one of those political IQ tests. Can you think about the long-term consequences like I described, or can you only think about your feelings in the moment? Just think on that.
If you're on the Wi-Fi in a coffee shop or hotel, anyone on that network can get your traffic. Do you really trust all of those strangers? For that matter, do you really trust your ISP? A VPN can protect you from prying eyes, disguise your location, and even foil government censors. It's essential in this day and age, so go to vpn.bogosity.tv and you'll be taken to BoxPN. Starting at just $2.99 a month, you can get unlimited high-speed connections to VPN servers all over the world, and they don't log connections, so your privacy is assured. Traveling abroad, just VPN home, and don't worry about what those other governments are doing. Back at home, stop your ISP from traffic shaping and messing with the quality internet access you're paying good money for. You can connect from multiple machines at once, including your smartphone or tablet, and it supports all the secure standards, including OpenVPN and SSTP. Bypass censors and surveillance with your own secure VPN connection. Go to vpn.bogosity.tv. This next one's up in your neck of the woods, Tim. More about Canada's wonderful universal healthcare system.
One of the many reasons why I work very hard to keep my health good.
Yeah. Remember when statists said that death panels were a myth? Remember when they bloviated and lied about the NHS killing the elderly to free up bed space? And remember how they constantly claim the free market is evil because they'll kill people if it's more profitable than keeping them alive? Well, guess what? Canada is projecting that euthanasia could save them over $138 million a year.
During which time the cost of healthcare ballooned up way more than that, so even if we ignore all the moral aspects of this, it's completely just a band-aid solution anyway.
Euthanasia only became legal in June, and already 800 people have received a lethal injection at the hands of a doctor. Now, I'm in favor of someone's right to end their own life. But the discussion about euthanasia should be initiated by either the patient or the patient's family, never by the doctor or hospital staff. This is one area where you don't want perverse incentives.
Yeah, because unfortunately, the doctor can't give you good advice on this because he has a conflict of interests.
Yep. And I mean, that's what happens with universal healthcare. Instead of this being a rare act of desperation to avoid needless suffering, Canadians actually seem to want to normalize it. Case in point, 2 bioethicists in Quebec who have argued that combining euthanasia with organ donation would be a great way to get quality organs for needy patients.
Or you could allow people to sell organs, but oh no, you get all giddy about that.
Yeah, that's capitalism. That's immoral. What are you talking about? And researchers from the University of Calgary who said, quote, medical assistance in dying could reduce annual healthcare spending across Canada by between $34.7 million and $138.8 million, exceeding the $1.5 to $14.8 million in direct costs associated with its implementation. But you see, the problem with the U.S. healthcare system is they're always worried about profit.
This drives me nuts when people say that socialized whatever, it's not profit-driven, so it's better. Okay, either A, you're saying that everyone who works for the Canadian medical industry is working for free, and I hate to tell you this, but no, that's not true. Or B, you're saying, yes, they are being paid, but they're not in it for the money, to which I would say, how would you even know that? You don't know that. You're making stuff up there. Like, this is why I have said so many times, anyone who uses profit like a dirty word is a hypocrite. Unless you're a hermit who is completely self-reliant, I'm sorry, you are a hypocrite if you ever make that statement.
But the issue here is the costs of end-of-life care rise steeply in the last 6 months, so the bean counters love euthanasia for that reason. But researcher Peter Tanyusaputro, I'm mangling that I'm sure, says that this is because Canada's palliative care system is, quote, inadequate and haphazard. Whereas some patients who seek medical aid in dying are resolute in their choice, the choices of others may reflect the failure of our healthcare system to provide effective palliative care. He also pointed out that the proportion of Canadians with cancer who die in the hospital is twice as high as the U.S.
And they just never learn, no matter how many times we told them.
But we've seen this before. We covered it on the podcast with the Liverpool Care Pathway. Something that was only supposed to be done at the express request of the family became something done without even their knowledge. But in a market-based system, you'd be the customer, so you'd be able to make the decisions. But what's that old saying? If you're not paying for it, you're not the customer, you're the product.
This is the bottom line about this, people. Even if I ignored all of the moral issues raised by this, the money you save here is an absolute drop in the bucket compared to how much the cost of socialism goes up, because socialism is not sustainable. Look it up. Healthcare is actually not that expensive. This is almost like, I'd say, over 90% government bureaucracy involved here.
In Belgium and the Netherlands, 1 to 4% of all deaths are due to euthanasia. If Canada goes that way, it will mean 8,000 euthanasia deaths a year. And remember, it's government that's paying for it, and government bean counters that ultimately manage it. If euthanasia is such a cost-saving option, how much incentive will they have to improve the palliative care?
Yeah, they don't even know these people. Like, they've got no moral hesitation about it. They're just distant numbers on a chart to them. Socialism is not free, it is not cost-saving, and it most definitely is not moral. If this doesn't open your eyes to that, well then, all I can say is take good care of your health, folks.
We live in a world where light bulbs connect to the internet, and recent attacks on them prove that your online security is under threat like never before. Not only your websites, but the internet-enabled devices you buy. And the biggest problem is weak passwords. That's why you need LastPass. LastPass allows you to randomly generate strong, unique passwords on the web and on your internet-enabled devices, all protected by one master password. LastPass sets up in minutes and gives you secure automatic logins throughout the web, synchronizing across all your browsers, all your computers, and even your mobile devices, at home, at work, or on the road. It even securely stores sensitive form data, including credit card numbers, backup sensitive documents, software licenses, Wi-Fi logins, and more. And with LastPass Premium, you can get these benefits on other applications, manage passwords for your entire family, and also get priority customer support. Sign up at password.bogosity.tv for a free month of LastPass Premium. Log in securely everywhere using the last password you'll ever have to remember. Go to password.bogosity.tv and get LastPass now. And now it's time to photocopy this week's biggest bogon emitter. And this week it's another story from Canada as it goes to Jason and Jodi Chapnik, who sued a neighbor for $2.5 million, I'm guessing that's Canadian dollars, for copyright infringement when the neighbors renovated their house and it ended up looking similar to theirs. According to the Toronto Star, quote, Jason and Jodi Chapnik, who live in a multi-million-dollar home on Strathern Road, filed a lawsuit against their neighbors for remodeling a nearby property on Vesta Drive to look strikingly similar to their house.
I'm actually kind of surprised this happened in Canada. Don't we have the loser pays policy when it comes to suing people, or did that get removed?
I don't know. I thought the U.S. was the only one without that. But I did look at Canadian copyright law, and there's no requirement that the person be aware that they've copied something. So if you come up with something you think is completely original, but it happens to be similar enough to something copyrighted, you can still be sued for infringement.
So you can basically sue anybody with a little creativity. How much you want to bet lawyers lobbied for this?
Yeah. And I mean, if you look at the pictures, the two houses do look similar, but that's because they're both basically A-frame Tudor-style stone cottages. There are a whole bunch of houses that look just as similar all over the world, and they've been there for centuries.
Yeah, a lot of houses have a tendency to look similar simply because if it's the most efficient design, well, that's what everyone's going to lean towards.
But that didn't stop them, quote, a tremendous amount of skill, effort, time, judgment, care, and money was spent across nearly 7 years in terms of designing, architecting, and building a unique and beautiful house. The events that occurred in relation to the house on Vesta Drive were incredibly distressing.
Yeah, in other words, we want free money.
Basically. But this was something I couldn't figure out about Canadian copyright law, but in the United States, you can't copyright something that's utilitarian, and a home design is utilitarian. But I mean, even if you could copyright it, a Tudor stone A-frame, I think you've got prior art on that.
How far would you take this? Like, oh, I copyright making cars out of metal. Everyone else has to make their cars out of wood now.
I don't know. The parties have settled out of court for an undisclosed amount, but the Chapnik still dragged it through the courts for 3 years, so that's why only Jason and Jodi Chapnik could be this week's biggest Bogon emitter. If you're going to shop online, use our special links to shop at Amazon. Clear your cookies and go to amazon.bogosity.tv, and you won't pay a penny more for your purchase. If you haven't used the mobile app in the last 12 months, or even at all, go to get5.bogosity.tv on your phone or tablet and get $5 off your order of $10 or more. Go to prime.bogosity.tv for a free 30-day trial of Amazon Prime and enjoy thousands of movies and TV episodes, borrowed Kindle books, and get unlimited 2-day shipping for free. And speaking of Kindle, go to kindle.bogosity.tv for a 30-day free trial to Kindle Unlimited. Read over 1 million books and listen to thousands of audiobooks on any device. You can go to music.bogosity.tv and get a free 30-day trial of Amazon Music Unlimited with access to Amazon's entire library of 10 million songs, ad-free and with unlimited skips, and even download to listen offline. All great ways to help this podcast simply by shopping at Amazon. And now let's decaffeinate this week's
Idiot Extraordinaire.
And this week it goes to the city of Atlanta, who's trying to get out of a completely bogus and expensive deal that they completely forgot they made. Apparently, in the wake of the housing crisis, the Atlanta Housing Authority agreed to sell $138 million of land to a developer for just $17 million.
Not bad.
I'd like to get that deal. The developer, Integral, said the deal was made in 2011 with former AHA chief Renee Glover, but the current AHA president, Catherine Buell, has no knowledge of it and was completely surprised when Integral tried to make it go through in 2016.
But we need taxes, they said. The government can spend them much better than us stupid people and stupid commoners can spend it, they said.
I mean, at best you have mismanagement. At worst you have corruption. It looks like it might be a secret deal made in violation of state and federal regulations. But the fact is, it's actually fairly typical of housing authority scandals all over the country because a lot of them take taxpayer money intended to house low-income people and give it to politically connected developers or spend it on projects that are never finished, and sometimes even demolish homes belonging to poor people.
This is one of the other reasons why the idea that government can spend money better is ridiculous. Because you got to remember, the people in government today are not the same people in government tomorrow. So if I gave you a credit card and told you, guess what, you're going to be dead by the time you have to pay for this, of course you're going to go on a spending spree. Why wouldn't you?
Now, oddly enough, there are no records of any meeting minutes or any votes surrounding this deal anywhere in 2011. 2 board members serving at the time said they had no memory of it. There was also no record of any review or approval from HUD.
Not that surprising when you think about it.
But Glover says the deal is real and she insists she went through all of the proper channels. By the way, both she and Integral co-founder Egbert Perry serve on Fannie Mae's board of directors.
Oh, there's your answer right there, boys and girls.
And so it's not so much that this happened, and not really even that the city completely forgot about it. It's because they seem to be completely impotent to actually do anything about it. So Atlanta may not be alone in this, but they stand out enough to be named this week's
Idiot Extraordinaire.
Well, that wraps up this over-numerousness edition of the Bogosity podcast. Come join the discussion at forum.bogosity.tv and feel free to send a question, statement, news article, or rant in text or audio to podcast@bogosity.tv. This podcast depends on you to keep going, so please donate using the links on the website or the QR codes in the thumbnail, or become a patron at patreon.bogosity.tv and get the podcast and YouTube videos early and without ads or promos. Thank you for listening, and thanks to Tim Dyson for joining me.
No problem. And as always, be aware and be wise, boys and girls.
Until next time, here's a quote from Max Weber. It is not true that good can follow only from good and evil only from evil, but that often the opposite is true. Anyone who fails to see this is indeed a political infant. The Bogosity podcast is licensed under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License.
Bogosity.
Christmas time is coming, and the most classic of Christmas stories is A Christmas Carol. But how much do you know about the original Charles Dickens novella? Have you dismissed it as a children's book with one-dimensional characters amounting to nothing but platitudes and cliches? Maybe your appreciation of the book was even muted by those dry, boring, annotated books they made you read in school. My book, the sarcastically annotated A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, uses both facts and humor to present the book in a way you probably haven't seen it before. Giving praise when deserved and beratement when warranted, this book is put in the perspective of its time and shows a dimensional, multi-layered Ebenezer Scrooge from start to finish. Skepticism, history, and even economics are employed to show the book in relation to today in an easily accessible format. Appreciate the Christmas of your youth all over again. Get the sarcastically annotated A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, available at Amazon and on PDF as well.